Hello everyone, welcome back. Now let's go to the second part of this chapter, Pavement Materials, a general introduction. Again, my name is Yang Xu. At the beginning, let's take a look at the typical pavement structure. We can see that from this picture very clearly. We have the surface, we have the base, subbase, and the subgrade. For the subgrade soils, we have just introduced them in last class. And from this class, we are going to introduce the surface, base, and subbase. Here is the contents of this mini class. Generally, we are going to talk about the unbound granular materials, inorganic bind stabilized materials, as for the stabilized materials, as for the mixtures, concrete materials, and recycled materials. And for the application of these materials in the base course, in the surface course, or for some other purpose, we also list them here. First, unbound granular materials. Generally, when we talk about unbound granular materials, we are talking about the graded crushed or gravel stones. Why it is graded? It means that we may have some design gradation for these materials. So, for the raw materials, we have crushed stones or gravels. And for the binders, we have no specific requirements. And we may have some tiny particles, for example, soils. And we don't have very adhesive binders. For the applications, the unbound granular materials, they are usually applied for the base and the subbase. And sometimes they are also used for the cushion layers. And we can also see difference between the gravels and the crushed stones. For example, on this slide, we can see the pictures of the gravels and the crushed stones. We can see that generally the gravels, they are round with smooth surface. However, for the crushed stones, they are angular and they have fractured faces. This is very important because when they are utilized in the asphalt pavement and for the concrete pavement, they may have different properties, and we also have different requirements for them. For the inorganic bind stabilized materials, we call IBSM. We may have some basic information. For example, the components, we have soils or aggregates, water, and inorganic binders. And for the bind types, we could have several of them. For example, we have lime, cement, and industrial waste. For example, the fly ash and the slags. And the IBSM, it is also known as a semi-rigid base materials. We call it SRBM. Why? Because this material is being widely used for the base layer in China. And their modulus is between those for the flexible and the rigid materials. So we call it semi-rigid. And in French, British, and American standards, IBSM is also called the hydraulical bond mixture because the hydration is one of the main chemical reactions during that process. And in this class, actually IBSM, SRBM, and HBM, they are identical. So we are talking about the same thing when we talk about these three different terminologies. So how to produce IBSM? Generally, we have the cement or lime or fly ash, that is the industrial waste, and we mix with the aggregates. So what are the aggregates? We could be the coarse aggregate, the crushed stone, the gravels, or even soils. So we can get the stabilized materials. For example, on the right, we can see those pictures for the pavement application. We have the stabilized base. So how about the categories and classifications for the IBSM? And the different countries, they may use different categories. For example, in the British standard, we have two categories based on the aggregates. We have the crushed rock coarse aggregates and the gravel coarse aggregates. That is the two categories. And how about if we categorize it based on the bound materials? We have three of them. They are the cement-bound granular materials, fly ash-bound materials, and the slag-bound materials. So that is the British standard. So how about the Chinese standard? Chinese standard for the aggregates, we also have two categories. Actually, they are the same. We have the crushed rock coarse aggregates and the gravel coarse aggregates. And based on the bound materials, we are a little different. We have the cement bound, we have the lime bound, and we have the lime and the fly ash bound materials. Why we have the lime and the fly ash bound materials? Because these two materials, they are widely used in China, and they are also very common in China. So we can see that a little or slight difference between the Chinese standard and the British standard. About the asphalt stabilized materials, we can see that we just introduced the inorganic bind stabilized. So the asphalt stabilized, we can also call organic stabilized. So what are the categories based on the aggregate gradation? We have three of them. We have dense graded, the semi-open graded, and the open graded. And those typical materials, we could have asphalt treated base, asphalt macadam, and asphalt treated permeable base. And among them, actually the first one, the ATB, is the mostly widely used. And for the different types of gradation, we may have different air voids. That is very important because they will affect the performance. For example, the typical air voids of ATB, 3 to 6%, and for the AM, 6 to 12%, and for the ATBB, 18 to 22%. That is pretty high. And for the asphalt mixtures, and here we need to be mindful that we separate the asphalt mixtures from the asphalt stabilized materials. Because usually when we talk about asphalt mixtures, we are talking about those materials used for the surface layer. So what's the components of an asphalt mixture? It is composed of coarse aggregates, fine aggregates, mineral fillers, asphalt, and additives. They are mainly used in the surface layer. So this is different from the asphalt stabilized material. And this graph can give us a pretty clear description of the asphalt mixture. We can see that it is composed of mineral aggregates, asphalt, and others. And for the mineral aggregates, we have the coarse aggregates, fine aggregates, and fillers. And for the asphalt, we could have the petroleum asphalt, emulsified asphalt, and sometimes we can also have modified asphalt. And for others, we have a lot of other material can be used in the asphalt mixtures. For example, the recycled asphalt pavement and the recycled building materials, and even others, for example, the recycled tire materials. What's the main types of asphalt mixtures? Generally, we have several different types according to their gradation. For example, the first one, the asphalt concrete. It is continuously graded asphalt mixture. And asphalt sand mastic, it is composed of asphalt bind, fine aggregates, and fillers. And also we have stern matrix asphalt, SMA. It is a gap graded but skeleton asphalt mixture. And we also have asphalt macadam, that is asphalt and crushed stones and others. And all these different types of asphalt mixture, they have their own application scenarios in pavement engineering. And in the future, if you do more research and practical engineering work, so you will know or understand them more clearly. How about concrete materials? Generally, concrete materials, when they are used in pavement engineering, they can be used for the surface course. They can also be used for the base course. So for the surface course, usually we have the plain concrete and the reinforced concrete. So what are the plain concrete? It is composed of aggregates, cement, water, supplementary cementitious, and chemical admixtures, and air voids. And for the reinforced concrete, According to its definition, we know that the concrete is reinforced by steel bars. And sometimes if reinforced concrete is used, we call it continuously reinforced concrete pavement, CRCP. So concrete materials, if they are used for the base, so we can use the lean concrete and the rolled concrete. So what is the lean concrete? That is a concrete with a low amount of cement compared to the plain concrete. And for the rolled concrete, that is a lean concrete which is constructed through the rolling compaction. So this is for the base course. And here are some pictures of the recycled materials. So we can see very clearly, for example, recycled asphalt pavement, recycled building materials, recycled electronic materials, and recycled waste tires. And all of these materials we show here, they have been used already in pavement engineering. And of course, a lot of effort needs to be done to improve them. So in the future, you can also contribute to this area. So the summary of this section, we can see that for the pavement, we have the surface, base, subbase, and a subgrade. For different layers, we have different materials. For example, for the surface, we can use asphalt mixture and cement concrete. For the base, we can use the inorganic binder stabilized materials, asphalt treated materials, and lean concrete. And for the subbase, we can also use the unbound granular materials and also the inorganic binder stabilized materials. For the subgrade, sometimes we can use untreated or treated soils. Okay, thanks for your attention.